I will chair the department as well as the president of this organization. And I don't regret saying yes. This has been a wonderful year. And we are also celebrating 50th anniversary. So.
That's right. It's a special year for CWS too. Thank you, Tomi. Next, we'll ask Ruth Charney. Tell us how you became AMS president.
Well, in truth, leading organizations was never my goal. On the other hand, I had opinions on everything. And when I saw something I didn't like or felt could be done better, and I wanted to change it, I couldn't keep my mouth closed. So I started getting involved early on in department politics, committees, professional societies, anywhere I felt like I could have some effect. And so fairly early in my career, I ended up on the AWM Executive Committee for a term and then on the AMS Council. On the other hand, for a long time, I was not willing to take on leadership roles. I had kids at home and I had a very strong commitment to building my research career, and I didn't want to let major service commitments get in the way. So in addition to that, I guess I felt, not only did I love doing my research, but I felt like the best thing I had to offer was to try and become a leader in my mathematics field and thus a role model. So for a while, even though I was involved in sort of committee things, I refused to take on leadership roles. I was asked to run for chair of my department. I was asked to run for president of AWM, and I said no. But eventually I gave in. My kids had gone off to college. My mathematics career was pretty well established, and I didn't have any excuses anymore. So finally, I stopped saying no, and here I am today.
We're glad you did. Thank you. Susanne, could you go next? What's your path to becoming president of SIAM?
So there certainly was no specific path. As was said before, it's the fact that I've done a lot of service to the community over the years. I've served on a lot of editorial boards, various funding panels, both in the US and around the world, various committees. Again, as Tomi's being guilty of saying yes too often to too many asks. Okay, and it was certainly not expected, but it was certainly an honor to be asked to run for president of SIAM. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathryn, could you go next?
Yeah, so I'm AWM president and also director of the Center of Undergraduate Research in Math. And for both, the organizations had made a huge difference in my own professional life. Like I might not be here now without either of them. And so I wanted to support them. I wanted to give back to the organizations that had supported me. So I started with small volunteer work for each. And then, as with all organizations who rely on volunteers, once you're halfway, you show yourself to be halfway capable, you get asked to do more and more things. So opinions are dangerous. Also, competence is dangerous. So also, I was part of the MAA Southern California section. I was secretary for a while. And then my first tenure track job was at Cal State Channel Islands, which was, when I was hired there, only 4 years old. And so even though I was like very, very green, there weren't enough senior faculty to do all of the stuff that needed to be done. And so I ended up doing a lot of things that normally I wouldn't have been able to do at that level of my career. And then I also have a history of starting programs where I see a gap. And so that gave me some extra experience.
Thank you, Kathryn. And Kathy Ensor, would you mind going next?
Certainly. So I'm Kathy Ensor. I'm a Noah Harding Professor of Statistics at Rice University, and will become president of the American Statistical Association in 2022. I'm very honored to be taking on that role, and still have a hard time understanding how I got to this point, but we'll try to do the best with the opportunity. How did I get here? So it's a little bit of the same thing, but I think in all the opportunities that I've had in terms of service, I look for opportunities to establish new things, fill in gaps. So really stepping up to the plate in terms of looking for other things that are needed. So not just service, but leadership throughout my career. And I encourage all of us to think of service in that way. Where are those leadership moments when you can commit your time in that way? And so then I think it just becomes a lot of name recognition, and I hope shared values as I'll be leading the organization that I care so much about. So.
Thank you. So after this introduction, I thought we would go into some questions. So I've got some prepared questions. We'll do that for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and then we'll open it up to all of you who are here to ask the panelists questions. So the first question I like to address would be, what in your background do you think most prepared you for your tenure as president of your organization? And you could just raise your hand or jump right in, whatever would be easiest.
I'll jump in and get
Sure.
the ball rolling. So when I joined Rice as a young assistant professor, I was the first hire of a brand new stat department. And so I did have to contribute in many different ways. I became involved in university leadership as well. And then really saw my profession at the American Statistical Association as a home to help nurture my career, and so really engaged with that society. And so I think that those helped lay the foundation for leadership today. So those early efforts.
Mm-hmm. Jenny.
Sure.
Okay, so I will say I had a great role model in my own family, in that my father not only was a faculty member for many years, but he was the dean of faculty at Brown University for a handful of years, and he was chancellor at the University of Tennessee. And I would grow up listening to all of the issues that were being discussed around our dining room table every night. And so he was very instrumental in the Louise Lamfair action suit against Brown and her tenure decision. And that was many, many, many years ago. But this idea of someone who is advocating for fair treatment from a position of power, I thought was very powerful to me at a young age. So he was just a man with a good soul, and I tried to live his values.
That's great. Anybody else?
I'll just say a word. I think starting small is good. I mean, just getting, like, I got involved in stuff in my department, just sort of local things. And then you sort of gradually, that gradually grows. Also getting, just doing things. If you are interested in involvement in professional organizations, just doing things with them, participating in their workshops or helping organize one of their workshops, you get to know some of the leaders and some of the people who are more familiar with the organization, and you just start to make those connections and find out more about how the organization operates. And before you know it, somebody asks you if you'd like to serve on some committee or something like that. I think you just start small, interacting with the organizations, well, either within your department or interacting with organizations that you find interesting and important. And I think that's just a good way to start.
Kathryn?
So to be perfectly honest, my interest started by not being in leadership and seeing the effect of having good leaders and the effect of having bad leaders. Like the same people from like really tiny things, like the same people are in this meeting as were in yesterday's meeting. And somehow this meeting is a complete disaster. And yesterday's meeting was beautiful, you know, and it's all about how is that meeting run? And so that got me interested in like trying to figure out what's the difference? What are the tools that you need to make things go well? Things like that. Then spending time being department chair got me pretty accustomed to being yelled at on a regular basis, both by colleagues and by students. And so like I suffered a lot for a while, just taking everything very personally and wanting everyone to be happy. And so sort of working through that on a local stage instead of, you know, for AWM has, I think helped me quite a bit. So now I can get yelled at without having my psyche damaged too much. But then I also didn't feel like I belonged at all in math, which meant that I had to seek out structures and create structures just to like stay alive. The process, like when you do that, you're like making yourself a mini leader of your own little mini universe. I don't know. And then I think the last thing is that I grew up in a house where I was constantly told that I couldn't do things. And so I learned early on how to just stick it out and fight against the current, which I wouldn't describe leadership as fighting, but there is a kind of resolve that you have to hold on to, I think.
That's a good segue because Kathryn, I'm hearing you give some advice. My next question is about advice that you might have for early career mathematicians or maybe even mid-career mathematicians who might want to go into leadership. What would you say? What would you say to people who are thinking about getting into leadership, and what would help them push them over the edge?
I mean, I'll keep talking like Kathy did last time, because yeah, this is related to what I was just saying. So as like sort of outside a leadership, like if you're in a leadership position, reaching out to people who are outside a leadership position to encourage them, I would say just invite people to do things that they're interested in doing. So, you know, if you have someone, you know, there's someone who I know wants to get involved with the AWM, instead of being like, oh, I have this empty spot on a committee, we'll stick them in there, go talk to them and be like, what are you passionate about? And have them take on roles that they're interested in, instead of just slotting them in where you personally need them. Help share experience that you learned the hard way. There are all of these articles out there that I Googled when I became department chair that say that women leaders have a much more negative experience in their leadership positions than men do. And they've like very carefully documented all the different ways that this is true. And yet there's no paper talking about what to do about those things. So we've documented the problems really well, but we haven't proposed solutions at the same level. But if you talk to women who've done those things, or people who've done those things, you can get a lot of information about that's not currently in the literature. I think offering workshops that help people think through their own strengths and, you know, places where they might need to grow more, and kind of imagining themselves as being leaders, like, what does that mean to you? Because if it means like power, you might want to take a little more time to think that through. And then finally, helping people supporting people in building their own structures. So AWM is an amazing organization. It does a lot of amazing things. It is not perfect and it doesn't serve everyone else's needs. And so when I see other people building other structures to support a thing that AWM isn't doing such a great job at, instead of like feeling resentful or competitive, like reach out and support and see how you can help those people sort of be their mini leaders of their mini universes.
That was great advice. I'm taking notes over here, Kathryn. Anybody else want to address that one?
I wanted to comment about the leadership as not as a position or authority, but anyone can be a leader. And I think if someone think about leadership as basically kind of making the decision leading, I think it's a little bit maybe misleading, because I think to me, I think about myself as an accidental leader because I wanted something to happen for other people and I wanted to make things better. And so I think there's in a lot of ways people can be a leader, and by building allies and trying to make things better for others. And I think to me that the true leader is somebody who care about others, and role of lead others is I think that anyone can be that without having a position or any kind of authority. So the different side of the leadership, and I wanted to really encourage people to take that role, and even though they may not have an official position to do so.
Thank you, Tomi. Susanne, did you want to address this one too?
Sure, I can add to what people already said. Some things have already been said. Ruth already started by saying, so early young career women should start by organizing mini symposia, special sessions and workshops at conferences. That's a good way to get into the field and become better known to the people in your field. By that simple action of doing that raises your profile. Accept service invitations that make sense. It doesn't mean say yes to everything, right? You have to say yes to the things that interest you. And then when you do it, do a good job. And then you get noticed because of that. I think it's important to find a mentor or an ally who's going to help you over the years. As you do different roles, things are going to happen. You need to vent, talk to somebody. And it's important to have a trusted person you can talk to throughout your career. And finally, since it's an AWM event, let me put a plug in, take advantage of the opportunities for all the societies. Because it's AWM, let me mention a couple opportunities. The AWM Mentor Network is fantastic. There's the Mentoring Travel Grant Program, the research conferences, and all the events they sponsor at the meetings, the JMM, SIAM annual meeting, Math Fest, et cetera. Now, I see a couple people in the audience that I've mentored over the years, be it at a poster session or at the talk set at AWM sessions at either the JMM or SIAM. So these are people and contacts you are friends with for your whole career. So I encourage the young people to get involved early. Thank you.
Great advice. Mentoring, it's never too late to find a mentor as well. Thank you, Susanne. Jenny?
Just to add a little bit, in addition to saying yes when people ask you, it's really good to find your own strengths and lean into those. So I knew I was good at the publishing thing, and that is where I put my energy and had my successes. And I put myself out there. You can nominate yourself to be on committees and service roles for many of these organizations, but it's really great if you can say what you want to do and why, so that we can get you to a meaningful place. But on top of that, we're mathematicians, which means no one taught us how to lead at all. And we're smart and we figure things out. And those of us who succeed seem to have a reasonable amount of common sense. But there are people who study how to lead, and they write books, and they have symposiums on. And I feel one of the transformational moments for me, I believe it was at a SACNAS meeting. I took the coach seminar on how to negotiate and how to deal with difficult people. And you sort of learn the behavior of where to sit in the room when you know there's an adversary you're going to have to deal with, and how to use your body language to cut them off. And just thinking about these things and practicing them was tremendous. And there are these kinds of opportunities outside of mathematics. My institution has lots of sort of trainings that you can sign up for and look into those.
This is great. I'm listening so intently, I'm forgetting my next question. Let me refer to my notes here. Okay, yes, well, so we're switching gears a little bit. Would you mind describing for us what's some of the biggest challenges that you faced as president of your organization? So we're really trying to pull back the hood right now. Ruth, please.
Okay, I'll go, although this is a scary one. So I'm going to give two answers to this. One is just sort of the immediate challenges I'm actually facing in AWM, and that's political controversy right now. And you know, some of that may be connected with the whole mood caused by COVID, but a lot of it is, you know, we're getting enormous amount of pressure on both sides about diversity issues. We're doing too much, we're not doing enough, we're doing, you know, and just controversy. And you know, while yes, you have to expect a certain amount of that as a leader, I guess it's been more than I anticipated, and it's not my favorite part of leadership, dealing with, you know, angry people. So that's been a huge challenge, and I think more so than under normal circumstances. But that's what I'm faced with. The other challenge, of course, that's, I think, just generally true for any major leadership role. I mean, not just maybe not just being chair of a committee, but being, say, a president of a society or something like that, a big leadership role, is it can just be overwhelming. There are just so many things to deal with. There are constantly something new falling in your lap. And so the challenge is not just handling all that, but trying to remember what your main goals are, having some main goals and not letting those get swept under a tidal wave of little things you have to take care of. And so I've found, having served in a number of different leadership roles, the ones where I came in with a pretty clear picture of some things I wanted to get done that I thought needed to happen, those worked the best because I somehow didn't let everything else get in the way. I mean, yes, there was lots of other things to do, but I kept a focus on certain goals that I wanted to accomplish. And other leadership roles I've had, I came with a less clear picture of what, you know, I didn't know the organization as well, or I didn't have a clear picture of what I was trying to accomplish. And, you know, then I sort of felt like, okay, I kept the ball rolling, but I didn't really sort of accomplish some big important thing. You know, I just sort of kept the organization running. So I think the challenges, aside from the immediate, aside from this business of dealing with conflict, I think the challenge is to have some clear goals and not to let those get swept over by all the other little things that you're faced with. So that's what I would say.
I've got a follow-up for you, Ruth. So how did you, or how are you dealing with the controversies that have come your way?
I don't think there's an easy answer to that. I mean, right. So one of the issues is, do you respond right away? Do you answer every time somebody's angry about something, do you respond? Or is that just, you know, blow it up? And so we're trying to balance, but there's some things, you know, that there are some big issues right now. You know, I've written some letters that I would like to sort of put out there, but first we have to decide if that's the right thing to do, or if we should have some other discussion rather than just put out an answer, or should we have, I have not got a simple answer. Every time this happens, you know, I don't decide this all myself. I talk to other members of the council or the board of trustees or the communications department, and try and, you know, find ways of how do we respond to things. I mean, in some cases we feel we need an immediate response. In other cases we feel, this is another problem, but this may be unique to the American Mathematical Society. It has a lot of rules, a lot of structure. So any statement that's made in the name of the society has to be approved by the council and go through a whole, you know, series of steps. Whereas other things, I can just make a statement as president, by myself tomorrow, so is this something that has to go through the council, or is it's been complicated, and I don't have a simple answer to that. I lose sleep over this every night, so.
Thank you. So before we get Kathy's answer, we see that Pamela and Omayra have joined us. Welcome. The other panelists had a chance to introduce themselves. I'd like to give you that opportunity right now. So I just ask you to say your name, the organization that you're representing, and just very briefly, how did you come to the role as president of your organization? And maybe we'll ask Omayra to go first. I see she's unmuted.
Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for being late. Pamela and I were both in a SACNA session that just ended, so we rushed over. But my name is Omayra Ortega. I am an assistant professor at Sonoma State University in Roanoke Park, California. That's in Sonoma County, California. I'm also the president of the National Association of Mathematicians. I've been in this role for a couple months now. I first became a member of NAM in 2001. Just as soon as I heard about NAM, I became a member of NAM. It was my first JMM, my first joint mathematics meeting is when I first learned about NAM. And I was very excited to become part of the board immediately as a grad student. And the leadership at NAM was like, no, why don't you finish your PhD and get tenure and then come back. And of course, I'm in the process of applying for tenure now. So I am clearly an impatient person, and I don't like to wait to do the things that I want to do. But in 2007, I became a life member of NAM. And I think that commitment to NAM sort of put me more on their radar. And so for that reason, much later in 2018, I became the editor of the newsletter. And so this role is actually a pretty involved role. You're a member of the board, you're part of the integral decision-making of NAM. And so I was on the board for 3 years as a newsletter editor. And as my term ended, I realized that I wanted to run to be the president of NAM. And so I won that election, as you can see. And that's really how I came to this role. But it was really just this long commitment to the organization is how I found myself in this role.
Thank you,
Good
Omayra.
afternoon, everyone. So I'm Pamela Harris, and I am currently the president of Lathisms, so Latinx and Hispanics in the mathematical sciences. And how I came about this role, I think, was just by sheer determination to continue the organization beyond how we started, which was Alicia Prieto Langarica, Gabriel Sosa, Alexandra Diaz Lopez, and I, over a Facebook conversation, were wondering, wait, where do we keep track of all the Latinx folks in math? Is there, a biography project? I know SACNAS had started, but it really was all scientists. And we wanted to really focus on the contributions that Latinos and Hispanics were providing to the mathematical community. And so we started a website, just like anybody starts a Google site. And we started populating a Hispanic Heritage Month calendar where we featured a Latinx mathematician during September 15 to October 15, 2016. And as soon as we did that, the community really loved it. I mean, we had a huge amount of traffic to the website. People were sharing all of the biographies we compiled. And so every year we just decided we should continue this tradition and have our Heritage Month calendar. And then eventually we thought, well, we should expand. Maybe we want to do some podcasts. Maybe we want to have some downloadable flyers. Oh, maybe we want to start having lectures. And then maybe we want to have a scholarship. And so as soon as you start thinking money, you start thinking, okay, now we need to become official. And so this past year, with the phenomenal support of the mathematical community, we raised funds and we're now a nonprofit organization. And so with that came the requirement to name a president, a treasurer, and a clerk at a minimum. And so that's where we're currently at. We are a very tiny operation, but we are super excited to partner with other organizations. And so we're working right now in discussion with the Mathematical Association of America to really get our scholarship going. And so I'm just really excited to have the opportunity to share some of the work we've been doing. So thanks. And again, my apologies for the late arrival.
No worries at all. Thank you, Pamela. So ladies, the question that we were on was the panel was addressing challenges that they've faced as president. So we're going to get Kathy in next, but that's the question that's been asked.
Yeah, so maybe a little bit like Ruth. So ASA is a huge organization and it's very complex. And even though I've been involved with it from the beginning of my career, and happily so, you really don't understand everything that goes on until you're in the role of president. I mean, I was vice president and it didn't hit me quite then, but when I stepped into, so I'm actually not president yet. Rob Santos is president. But since we expect him to be our next Census Bureau director, yay, quietly, yay, I'm stepping up to a lot of the roles that he would have, and so just recognizing that ASA accomplishes so much, not only for statisticians, but for the profession of statistics and for the world in general. And you don't want to disrupt that. You know, I'm technically sort of the boss of everything, but, you know, I will be that for a year. And so I want anything that I do to be a value add. And so really trying to recognize exactly what that means and to have a lasting impact. I don't want to just, you know, be this flash in the pan for a year, but, you know, I want people to look back in 10 years and think that I contributed to our organization and our society. But just, I think that was one of the hardest things, is still a hard thing, just getting my head around the complexity of everything that they do. And I'm still wowed and impressed and thankful and grateful. But that was one aspect that I did not expect to hit me.
Anyone else want to talk about the challenges they face? Yes, Jenny.
Got it. Absolutely. I'm going to talk big picture challenges. We are all membership organizations, and the nature of membership organizations has changed tremendously with the advent of the internet. Things that you would belong to my organization for, you can now get freely on the internet. And people are questioning, well, why do I have to pay for it, right? So this is hanging over everyone whose membership model used to be, you're going to belong and we're going to create some nice journals for you and we'll have a nice meeting. Well, honestly, our nice meetings only serve the people who are most privileged to be able to get to those meetings. We have to find a way to serve all our members, not just the people who can get to our meetings. We have to change our mindset to really hone in on what our mission and values are and how we can push those out and serve our members in a way that's different than we've been doing for the last 100 years. And we have to realize that, you know, for us, we can't just focus on, for MAA, it's not just collegiate faculty, right? There are many people, from the high school students who are taking our math competitions to faculty at two-year colleges, to vital faculty, sort of the adjuncts, all the way up to people who are in industry, right? So it has really changed everything, including the publishing industry, but I'll leave that.
Kathryn?
So I'll second everything that Jenny just said and maybe add an asterisk that says, these organizations are doing a lot of work that you don't see that benefits you indirectly, like political advocacy, advocacy for funding for the NSF, things like this. These are things that require large scale organizations, that kind of grassroots independent efforts really can't have the same level of effect, I think. So that's something to think about. Anyway, so I'm going to go the opposite direction though, and talk about the challenge that surprised me most. The challenge that surprised me most is that when you become a leader of a group in the, like you're in a position sense, not as was said very wisely, you can be a leader from anywhere. And that is that when you lead a group, you no longer speak for yourself. So if you're opinionated like Ruth and me, suddenly you have to like clamp that down. If you're a department chair and the department votes not in the way that you voted, you have to go to meetings and very, just as if you fully believed it, very convincingly advocate for the thing that your department voted for. And same with the organization. And that can be very frustrating. And so I'll say to those of you who aren't currently in positions, like your loud voice is super useful to people in leadership positions who want to be saying those things and cannot. And so I realize it leads also to what Ruth was saying was her biggest challenge was you got yelled at from nobody's ever happy and everybody's yelling at you. But know that like that's a major and very important role that you're playing in these orgs.
Okay, thank you. So another topic. So I think all of you would agree that we want all of these organizations to be as inclusive as possible. So my question is, what is your organization doing to support women, people of color, and other underrepresented groups in mathematics? What are you doing to support those groups?
I might go first only because I feel like this will be very easy for me to answer.
Yes, it will be.
So the National Association of Mathematicians is founded on that very principle of, lifting up those mathematicians who have been underserved, underrepresented. We were founded for that reason. And so all of our programming has to serve that mission. And so we try to support underrepresented mathematicians, starting at the post-secondary level, in college, grad school, encouraging students at the undergraduate math fest to go on to graduate school, supporting their pursuit of summer research programs, attending RUs, letting them know about those opportunities for summer research, and also graduate school opportunities at Math Fest. And further, to support these students, we hold a faculty conference on research and teaching excellence in the spring to help faculty get professional development that they need to better support their undergraduate students. So we focus mostly on faculty at HBCUs, but all of our programming is open to anyone who wants to attend and who is in support of that mission as well. Okay, so with that, I'm going to press mute.
Ruth, would you like to go next?
Yes, we have a long list, which I will not be able to remember everything, but we've been working very, very hard for the last year or two to add more programs aimed at exactly this sort of thing. We've created a new fellowship. We've trying to set up conversations between faculty at HBCUs and faculty at other types of universities. We're trying to set up a lot of conversations and new professional development programs for people from underrepresented groups. One of the things I've been advocating for, I should say, in response to what we just heard, is that the AMS is an organization that has some money. You know, not all organizations have money. And one of the things I've been pushing for is let's give more money to programs that are already happening, maybe run by other organizations. Let's support them. Yes, we can start our own, and we are starting our own, but we should also, maybe the most effective way is to look out there and see what's going on that's been effective and help support those things. So we're starting to do more of that. We've created, so the structure of the governance structure, there's a council, the AMS has a council, but the council is pretty big, and it's hard to get things moving, you know, in a really big group like that. So we created a whole, this was quite some time ago, a set of policy committees, which are our major committees that actually decide on new actions we should take, which then get voted on by the council, but they come up with the ideas and organize them, et cetera, et cetera. And so we just created last year a brand new committee to focus on DEI type issues and see what could we be doing to better address these. And they've come up with a bunch of proposals, some of which are already in progress and others are still being developed. So there's definitely been a lot of focus on this. You know, as I said, some of these are going to take a while to really produce something, but in the meantime, we're trying to support things that are already in existence. So we're working in both directions to create new programs and to support existing programs that we see around us. So.
Kathy, I'm not sure if you or Tomi was next, but I'll just go with Kathy.
Okay, so ASA has been very active in this regard for many years, and but especially in the last few years. And I just want to point out a few things because I think probably everybody here has something really important to say. So we have established an anti-racism task force that has been very active, and you know, the previous Rob Santos is the current president, and the previous president was Wendy Martinez. And so they've been working together on this for several years. But why I want to mention this is why it's so important is because they're going through every structure in the ASA. And again, it's a big organization just to ensure that we have, you know, sort of justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion as part of our fabric, and they have this full support of the board to accomplish this. And so I do, and it's a huge effort, and being led by Adrian Coles and David Marker, and just recognizing how much work they're doing on this, and how it's being so positively received. So I want to mention that. And we do also have a Jedi outreach group that's come together where people can come. But one other thing, and then I'll stop. So ASA led, well, actually ASA didn't lead, but ASA, so Mark Ward at Purdue put forward a proposal, a workforce proposal for mentoring of undergraduates from underrepresented, from universities of traditionally underrepresented individuals. And so that got funded. And so ASA is the home organization of this effort. So that's $1.5 million to students. So all the faculty, of which I'm one, and the ASA staff are donating their time to this effort. And so there'll be a cohort of 100 students each summer trying to bring more students into statistics, data science, math. I'm sure that we're going to end up with a range of interest there. But that was just funded, and it's super exciting to be a part of it. And so so those are some of the new things that are on board. So.
Thank you, Kathy. We'll get Tomi and then Susanne.
So I wanted to, we had formalized the committee called P3, Promoting Positive Professional Environment Committee. So this was non-standing committee for a couple of years, but we just added to the bylaw. It's a formal committees now. The couple of the initiatives that the committee has provided was the diversity and inclusion training for the volunteers for CWS organizations, and also the buddy program for peer-to-peer mentoring program. And we also established Societal Impact Award, and we had a first recipient that was announced at the data science conference this fall. So we are a small organization. We are not like a big organization like ASA, but we are doing our best to make an impact. We also have country rep committee, and we try to really to reach out the have an international outreach as well.
Suzanne?
Okay, so I want to mention that SIAM has their first vice president for EDI who started recently. And in his first several months, he formed a task force, and they have a task force report that put together a lot of great suggestions that are now being considered for implementation. And one thing that has come to fruition recently is that we have a new early career fellowship, the MGB SIAM Early Career Fellowship, MGB for Mathematically Gifted and Black. So there's a partnership with them. So I want to plug that if there's anybody watching this broadcast right now, if you're eligible and you're within 5 years of your highest academic degree, please go to the SIAM webpage, look at the rules, put together an application. The deadline's November 15th. So thank you.
Wow, that's great. We'll try to get that link into the chat. Maybe someone's already done it. No, they haven't. I'll look that up. Kathryn and then Jenny.
So I'll try to be quick. Shortened version of the story is we commissioned a diversity task force around 2016. They interviewed and surveyed a whole slew of people, and in 2018 provided us with a report with several excellent recommendations. And we were a little bit derailed by the pandemic, but at the moment, we're in the process of developing an action plan number 1 as like the first set of steps that we're going to take. All of the committees have been charged to think about how their committee can contribute to this. We should be voting on this probably at our EC meeting in January. And then read that report, because you'll have very concrete examples of the things that AWM is doing around this. I'll just add at the end that I feel like this is one of those topics where you have to make it the number 1 priority, where when you're starting a conversation, you have this in mind, as opposed to you start the conversation and then at the end of the conversation, you're like, oh, wait, did we remember to think about all of these people that we want to make sure to include? So that's my unsolicited advice.
All right, I'm going to add on to that. I'm not going to go through the programs that exist, but I want to talk about the big picture things. This last year, we approved a new code of conduct at MAA, which is meant to put into words what we expect participants in our association or members or people who are coming to our meetings or people who are interacting online, how they need to behave. And it very much, though it started from the anti-discrimination, gender discrimination work of the Societies Consortium in STEM, it was definitely broadened to all forms of discrimination and harassment. But one of the things that I'm actually excited about in terms of moving towards the future is we are reviewing our guidelines for program review, because a lot of undergraduate institutions sort of come to the program review committee at MAA when they're undertaking their own review. And we are reworking that, or we're beginning to rework it, to infuse the questions of equity and inclusion into the program review process. So it's not just an add-on that you ask at the very end. So what are you doing about DEI in your program? But we're really looking at trying to change the system as opposed to just a one-off.
Thank you, Jenny. So I just have one more question and then we're going to
Could
turn it
I
over
add
to.
one? Could I just
Oh,
add?
yeah. Oh,
something?
sorry,
I'm
Ruth. I
sorry.
thought that maybe that was
No,
a
no, just quick.
leftover.
I already talked. Now, I just wanted to add that one of the things that I actually do get to do as president is appoint people to committees. And I realized that one of the most important ways to move forward on this kind of issue was to get more diverse committees, because they're the ones who are doing the work and making decisions and coming up with ideas. So that's really, I forgot to mention this. That's one of the things I've been working the hardest on. And it brings us back to what we were talking about before about getting people involved in committees. So please, 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 we would love to have people with an interest in diversity and we would love to be able to get new people onto our committees with who have either are from diverse communities or have an interest in increasing diversities. And I would encourage you to let us know if you'd like to get involved. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. And for people who might be interested and are watching this right now, who should they let know? Like, what's step one for them? Should they email you?
Yeah, there is a webpage, I think, where you volunteer, but it'd be better if they either email me or email the executive director and say, we have, I would say myself, the executive director, or anybody on the council that they know, if they know somebody else on the who's on governance now, and they could tell them that they'd be interested in getting involved, and they could pass it on. So that's a great idea. There is actually somewhere you can sign, say I'm interested in volunteering for this committee or that committee, but it'd probably be more effective just to send me an email, and I'll put you on the list of people to consider for the next. Some committee appointment, depending on what your interests are.
Thank you, Ruth. So my last question, maybe we could take 60 seconds for each of you to address this question. I want to know, what is your big picture vision for your organization? So where are you leading your organization? What's your vision? It's kind of tough, and only 60 seconds.
Maybe I can start. So we're tiny. We just got started. And so I think for me, the vision is really just making the organization be sustainable. And so thinking about a way in which we can keep people engaged, bring new membership, have new committees. And so it's really about growth at this initial stage. So that's kind of my vision. I just want to make sure that we become a staple of the mathematical community.
And I can go next because I've been taking on this role that I've been thinking a lot. Many women mentioned their legacy. I've been thinking about my legacy as NAM president. And I really want NAM to be a courageous place for all mathematicians, but especially for underserved mathematicians who feel out of place. I know myself personally, I recently, 4 years ago, started a new institution, and I just remember thinking, I was sort of like, every academic institution is a little bit hostile towards me, just a little bit. I'm going to be uncomfortable a little bit, maybe a lot even, at any institution that I work at, but I want to stay in this field. So I want NAM to make us feel welcome, that we belong here, that we have this source of strength, community that we can all tap into to energize us into our daily lives and continue our career.
Can't wait for that. Anyone else?
I feel like this is an AWM event. I definitely need to answer this question. Even though I've been talking a lot and was not going to answer the next question. So there are the kind of mundane things, like AWM is not AMS in that it does not have a lot of resources. And so one big prong of what I'm trying to do is really shore up the financial stability of the organization. We rely a lot on NSF grants, which is a lot of work for us, a lot of work for them. And it's always kind of a fingers crossed thing. So that's kind of one direction. Another direction is definitely addressing the diversity task force recommendations that I mentioned before. It's really interesting to be a gender-based organization at a time when we're more and more culturally understanding gender as a construct. And so while all of that is true, that construct is still alive and well in our society. And so we're figuring out how to walk the line of broadening our understanding of the people we're supporting at the same time that we continue to stay true to our mission, which is addressing how women and girls are treated differently in the mathematical community. So, and that we want to support their success. So that's another big thing. And then the last thing is getting the younger people connected again. So we've heard of the way that organizations are kind of changing and members are like, what's in it for me? And all of these students have, when I applied, I said I volunteered at this organization. And now when you apply to college, you have to say, here's the organization that I founded, and here are the 5 years worth of results that I have. And so I feel like what that has done, like that's great, you people are amazing, but also you don't have to start over again. Even if the organization isn't completely serving your needs, like how can we get you in so you can help us make us better? So that's the third thing I'm really focusing on.
I guess oh, I'm not muted. Me and my mute button. Obviously, everyone needs to come out of the pandemic in a safe and healthy way. That just goes without saying. For me personally, as a leader, I often spend my time fixing things or improving things. And I'm not worried about my legacy. I don't care about that. I just want to leave things a little bit better than I arrived. My hope, where I'd like to have an impact, is that math is truly a human pursuit, and we need to bring more of that humanity, and we need to welcome more people into our discipline than we have been. And so I have been working very hard at building community. So that's my focus.
You have been. Tomi?
So I didn't really came in with a big vision. I just wanted to make sure I don't mess up this year as a president. But this was a very special year. We had a 50th anniversary. And one of the big things we did was to bring all the presidents back to re-engage in this organization. So we had the president happy hours that was hosted by the past president, the interview project. So we have created a YouTube channel, and we created this short clip of video for them to document our history. And I think that I like to make sure that keep going, we can really connect the past with the present, and really the people, new generation can rely on the old generation, their knowledge, and build on it. And I think that was a very special year, and I'm really happy that I was able to do this particular year. So I would end there.
Thanks for that honest answer, Tomi. And Kathy?
Yeah, I'll just share a little bit. So I think maybe one of my comments have gotten overinterpreted. I'm not worried about my legacy. I just don't want to waste ASA's time. So one goal is to leave things better than when I came in, and there's always improvements that can be made. But when you run for ASA president, you're actually asked to put down a few things that you're going to work on, and so I think I probably should kind of let you know what those are. So the three things when I was asked to write my statement. So So certainly our statistics community is one of the pedestals of data science, and so helping our voice be stronger in that world has been a goal, and it's working out really well, and we've made a lot of big advancements in that direction. And then the other was to build up the opportunities for leadership. So it's kind of important in this regard to our membership, and how can more of our younger members and our mid-career members grow in their membership role, in their leadership roles. And remember that ASA represents academia, industry, and government. And so we have people from all of these walks of life. And then the third was maybe advancing a little bit the idea of urban analytics in the statistics community, because that's really, how can statistics and data science help make our communities stronger and better. And so those are the 3 points that I ran on, and it looks like I'm going to be able to have some impact on each of these without, again, leaving things better than when I started, because the last thing you want your organization to do is just to totally focus on the things you want done. And so those are some small things that I hope to accomplish, I guess.
Susanne.
I'll mute it. So I'm certainly hoping, like everybody else, that we come out of the pandemic stronger than ever. So we want to continue to promote applied and computational sciences around the world and continue to build interactions and cooperations. For example, we now have efforts to increase our efforts to promote industry through panels, through various cooperations. So that's something that we're hoping to see, that you'll see a lot of activity in that area in the next year. And as others have said, it's very important, as far as one of my goals, to continue to grow our membership. We want to not only retain members, but we also want to increase our membership.
All right, I think we have heard from everyone on that last question. I'd like to open it up to the people who are here. This is a panel discussion, so hopefully you have a question for our panel. I'm a big fan of speaking aloud, but if you don't want to do that, please just put your question in the chat. But if you'd like to just ask your question aloud, raise your hand and raise your Zoom hand so I can see it. Hi, Joanna.
Hi there. I'll go ahead and have a go. You've all been saying things about how you got started with, say yes to things, but not too much, only the things you're interested in. I'm curious about what advice you have for someone with a border collie style of brain like mine, who thinks everything is interesting and wants to herd all the things. Because something crosses my desk and I think, oh, I'd love to get involved in that. Oh, that's an extension of something I've already done. How do you choose when pretty much everything that someone suggests to you sounds like something you would love to spend time on, that at some point you just won't have? Any ideas?
Omayra.
Hi, Joanna. Thank you for your question. I actually have the exact same problem. Let me tell you, I teach 4 classes a semester, so I'm very busy. I'm president of NAM. I found it easy for me to decide on what's actually important. I mean, everything's going to be interesting. Everything's interesting, but what is important for me to be investing my precious, few free hours, minutes, maybe even. I wrote a mission statement. I wrote a mission statement for myself. What am I about? What is important to me? What is what do I need to be doing so that when I'm on my deathbed, I'm like, okay, I did, okay. And so if you write a mission statement for yourself, the type of work that you want to be doing, the things that you want to be engaged in, it'll be easier for you to say, while this opportunity is so interesting, it does not align with my mission statement. So I'm not going to do that. So I think that's been helpful to me, because I definitely overcommitted myself early on in my career. And so, I mean, maybe I still am, but I'm better at saying no and just discerning better what suits me and where I should invest my time.
I love that mission statement idea. Buhari.
I completely agree also, because there's only 24 hours a day. You have to kind of think about what you could do with existing job duties you have and the family life you have and for whatever else you need to do. So you have to choose wisely, and what you choose might be different from different phases of life. Because I didn't volunteer as much when my children are small, because I just didn't have very much time. And I do more when they are grown a little older. So, you know, your mission statement could change over time. And your time, you know, that might be available time might be different. But you do have to balance, because I understand everything sometimes look very interesting, but you do have to rank them and choose.
Buhari, do you have a question that you'd like to ask? See a hand up. Okay, maybe not.
I'm going to unmute because there was a question about what was the organization. And I said it was Coach, COACHE. And I don't know what it stands for. And I know it was something that was co-sponsored, possibly with AWM and SACNAS, that was at SACNAS many years ago. I think part of it is I know the chemists have used it a lot. Does anybody else know for sure?
I also did coach, but I did it at SACNAS.
I did it at SACNAS years ago.
There must be other questions.
I have a question for the other presidents, and maybe this got answered in the portion when I wasn't here, but I definitely heard a lot about, for instance, Kathryn Leonard mentioned, you have to represent your constituents, even if it's an idea that you don't necessarily support. And I was thinking about this when you were asking the challenges question, but then it just sort of went away from me. I think for me, there's a lot of balancing people's personalities that I didn't have to do as a newsletter editor. I just made a newsletter, I just did it. So I was wondering if, because I think this is useful for, not just, being the president of an organization, but just working on a team. How do you deal with situations where, you have to represent your team, but you don't necessarily all have the same idea of how things should proceed? How do you deal with that, balancing people's personalities?
Listen.
Two words, listen and carefully.
Yeah. And reflect back, like finding shared things you can agree on. I don't know.
I also said patience, lots of patience, and really don't react right away. Just kind of sit on it, and then just to try to understand the other's perspective.
So I agree. I find it very helpful to have, well, it's harder in a sort of a whole group situation or, sort of Zoom or whatever. I find it helpful to have a one-on-one conversation where I really listen to the person and try to understand their view. And I might not agree with it. I might express my own view and why I think that isn't right. But I mean, I genuinely listen and hope that at least we can understand where each other is coming from, even if we don't actually agree. But when you're in a whole group of people and these people feel this way and these people feel that way, it's harder then to get that conversation going in a productive way. Yeah, I don't have an easy answer for that.
Nor do I. But I'm going to say something anyways. It's very important to make sure that everyone's voice is heard in the room. Lots of times there are people who are much more fearful of speaking out. And I will regularly, if it is a difficult subject, I will ask for them to speak first so that we hear them and their ideas aren't influenced by the people with more power in the room, and I give those value. The other thing, a book that I read that was really transformational for me is a book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott. And it's a business management book, what can I say? But I mean, there are only two things you need to remember. You need to care deeply and you need to confront directly. And put those two things together. And by confronting, it's not you're wrong. It's a constructive, what can we do to change the situation?
I wanted to ask a question of the panelists. So you did talk about some of the challenges you found being a leader. Most of you did not. A couple of you said something a little bit personal, but for the most part, you didn't. One of the things that's been really compelling about this series is that many of the women have actually spoken about a little bit about their life and the challenges, how they address them, or even not, and just shared something personal about their experience as a woman, as a person of color, or just a person in math. And if anyone would like to share some of your challenges, because right now you all look perfect, and maybe that's good. But sometimes it's good for us to hear that you have gone through some human challenges. So anyone that would like to share that, I think many of us would be happy to hear about it.
Pamela?
I guess I'm never at a loss for just saying how I feel about things. I'm scared. I'm scared all the time. I'm scared of making a mistake. I'm scared of saying the wrong thing, either publicly or privately. I think, we take a lot of risks when we sit in positions of leadership. And I think, Kathryn pointed this out earlier, is this balance between being able to be you yourself, a unique person with your own ideas, your own thoughts, your own feelings about certain things, but also somehow representing an organization. And so I think it's scary. It's scary being a leader in however you define that. But I think the thing that gives me hope is that, and as Jenny put it, we're hoping to just make the mathematical community better in some way. And so even though I am deeply afraid every day to think about, starting a nonprofit, that was never something I envisioned, right? And then somehow serving as president and figuring out how to sustain the momentum of an organization and how to build community and how to empower other people to step into those roles. Even though I'm very scared, I think it's just that idea that we want to make this community better for everyone. And so I'm stepping into my own discomfort into feeling like I am potentially judged because I have a big mouth and I will tell it like it is. But I haven't read this book. Maybe I just need to do some more reading about how to just speak my mind so that people aren't, I'm often told, oh, you're so intimidating. And I'm like, well, maybe the answer is not that I'm intimidating. Maybe you're intimidated by me, right? So it's all of those stereotypes that you fall into when you are vocal, when you are someone who's opinionated, and when you're trying to move the discipline into a better position. And so I think it's hard and it's scary. And I guess that's what I had to say about it.
Maybe I'll give a more seasoned answer. I remember the hard and the scary, and I remember that, Pamela, and thank you for sharing that. Life is long and it's a journey, and every day it's a blessing to have, and we bring ourselves to each day. And I personally am just very thankful for even all the challenges that I've faced personally and professionally, and thankful for the opportunity to contribute in such a big way. But yes, there are personal challenges along with professional challenges, but I'm pretty confident that everyone here is probably doing a fantastic job on that day-to-day, even if it might be a little rough sometimes. And so I just remember, if there's rough times, there's going to be times that aren't so rough, I guess. That's the elder look. But I do remember being probably saying maybe I can almost hear those words coming out of my mouth that Pamela just made as well. But it's a fantastic journey, and so I don't know if that helps at all. But
I want to share something I haven't really told anybody. That I'm from Japan, and for in high school I was basically studying language and literature. I never really thought that I was good at math and that I could actually do math. Only after I came to US, because I had to take I came to US thinking I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. So I was taking a lot of the social science courses, but there's so much reading. So I took math classes because math I don't have to read. It's a universal language, right? And then I found out I was actually good at it. And I never really thought that till I came to the US, and when you are good at it, you start liking the subject. Then I take statistics, and I was, the best student in the class, and professor was giving me compliment, and I said, oh. So I think sometimes you make yourself believe, maybe because of the cultural background or family, or just something that you can't do. And I can tell you same thing about swimming. I didn't think I could swim. I was always using these floaters when I go to the ocean, like Hawaii. And one year I couldn't find them. There was nothing in a store. So I decided, well, I don't have any choice, so I'm just gonna see whether I can swim. And I said, oh, I float. And so I think there's something like you make yourself believe you cannot do, and it's actually you can do them. So I think there's a lot to be said about empowering or just dismissing these mistakes or misconception about yourself and abilities.
Thank you, Tomi. So we've got two more hands. I think we can answer both of those questions. Maybe we'll take 2 minutes each because we only have a few minutes remaining. So Buhari, would you like to ask your question? Well, if you're speaking, we can't hear you. You might be having some trouble with your sound again. You could put it in the chat. I think maybe that might be best. Put your question in the chat. And we'll move on to Rutgers AWM chapter. Hello.
Hi, so this is Corinne and Brittany from Rutgers. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So I had a question. Thank you, Kathryn. I had a question about specifically women in mathematics since we're at an AWM event. You know, so you talked earlier about like diversity and equity and inclusion and the things that all of your organizations are doing to promote that, which sounds really amazing. But I sort of wonder what you all see as like the bigger picture in terms of women in particular in mathematics and sort of the trajectory that we're on, because it seems like, you know, this is a very historic moment that we have all of you here, but also like sort of locally, I see a certain amount of like stagnation and status quo in terms of like, we're happy with what we've accomplished so far and not really looking to the future to make things even better than what they are now. So, and that's sort of things that I'm experiencing somewhat locally in terms of the demographics at local like institutions at the graduate student and the faculty level. And so I wonder if any of you can provide a different perspective as sort of what you see more globally in terms of where the mathematics profession is going across, you know, the country and across different sorts of institutions.
Clarifying question, where we think it's going or where we'd like to see it go?
Either.
Okay.
Omayra?
Okay. I just wanted to say that I think that we are, I maybe don't hold the exact same perspective, because I don't think that there is stagnation with respect to women in the mathematical sciences, but please, you know, correct me. I feel like this panel is just, is an example. This is a sign. Look at all the presidents of these organizations and we're all female identifying. So I think, you know, we're on the rise. I would say the future is female. I think, you know, we're on the road for world domination and I am ready for it. So that's just my perspective.
Maybe I should clarify that I didn't mean that there are fewer women maybe participating in math, but perhaps that institutional structures have not been sort of overturned everywhere to maybe encourage women at the faculty or the tenure track faculty level, maybe as they should be.
So I'll just say that so first of all, in my lifetime, women weren't allowed in the US to have credit cards without their husband's signature. They weren't allowed to have mortgages in AWM's lifetime, in NAM's lifetime. Like people, my mother, you know, I was a child. And so that wasn't, you know, like, I think it's really easy to focus and overwhelming, in fact, to focus on what we haven't yet managed to do and fail to stop to, or forget to stop to look back at like, what exactly has happened in a single generation, basically. So definitely there's more work to be done. I put a kind of snarky comment in the chat about exhaustion, but I think that's true. You know, like you fight, and you finally get tenure and you're like, I just need to take a minute to like ground and figure out who I am when I'm no longer fighting for my own survival and could start thinking about other kind of what to do next. So I think that's definitely true. That said, I really like the way that Ruth has, the past president of AWM, characterized it, which is we fought really hard to get in the house, get in the building. And now we're here and we're looking around and are like, this place really could use a gut and remodel. And I feel like we're in the process of like the design plan. We sort of know what's wrong, and we're now that we're here and able to actually have an effect, trying to figure out exactly what it is we want to do, not to repeat the mistakes of the past.
That's great. Ruth, did you have something you wanted to add?
I think it's kind of already been said, so I may be the oldest person here, but I've, been watching this process for like 45 years, and the fact is there's been huge changes if you look at the whole, the whole spectrum, but it is slow and it has been slow. And so it may not look like much is happening if you've only sort of looked back five or 10 years. Yes, things aren't perfect and we still need to keep working on it and progressing. But I guess I'm optimistic that seeing how far we've come over this amount of time, that if maybe 10 or 15 years from now, that the process is still happening. And no, it's not going to happen overnight, but and we do have to keep working. But I guess I'm pretty optimistic about it. So.
And let me add, we need to keep young people like the Rutgers AWM chapter, join the societies, volunteer for things, become the next leaders. That's what we need you to do.
Amen. We'll let Lenore Blum have a question. Hello, Lenore. Welcome.
Hi, just a comment. First of all, sorry I was real late, but I was at another meeting. But Ruth, sorry, but you're not the oldest one here. Yeah, I was here way before you. You were just a kid when I came in. Right. So I just wanted to clarify that. And of course, I've seen many, many changes over the years. One thing I wanted to say, in the very early years when we were starting out, I was the third president, but I was there from the beginning since 71 when we started the Berkeley chapter. There was a kind of headiness and excitement about what we were doing. It was like we knew we were onto something big. And, it was like we were the feminists in the street, really, at the meetings. We were the ones that were doing those proclamations, and we can't, ERA states, we can't meet in those states and all of that. And there was a kind of super excitement about that. And I think there's a different kind of excitement today, with all that's been happening. It's a little different. It's a little bit more, you may feel exhausted, but it's a little bit more calm, solid, and grounded. And with all the meetings of women mathematicians together, that's something that I think we couldn't have foreseen at that time. We were, the kind of meetings we had was filling up gaps. We were doing what nobody else was doing. And great to see everybody and what you guys are doing today. So anyway, but I think I may be the oldest person here. And it's not so bad. It's not so bad.
Perhaps because we are already 5 minutes over time, this might be a good place for us to wrap up. So I'll say thank all of you. Thank you, panelists, for being here. This has been an amazing panel. I've learned something. I know people have learned something. So yeah, we will wrap up. I hope to see at least some of you next month for Eugenia Cheng. And have a great rest of your day. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much.